Shanti Shanti.
So you put your mind, you put your aim for that greater welfare, aim for the greater welfare, and I will take you through the path, transcendental path, which is beyond dharma and adharma. The same thing we are finding in Nachiketa also. Anyatra dharmad, anyatra adharmad. That means beyond dharma and adharma, if you know anything, you tell me. Anyatra asmat krita kritat. Krita akrita means cause and effect, that effect and cause. That if you know, I know that the whole world, the whole creation is bound by cause and effect chain. Everything is related by cause and effect. And I also understand that to know the absolute truth, we cannot go by the cause and effect. This I have explained so many times, that if you look for the ultimate cause, by cause and effect chain, wherever you reach, suppose B is the cause of A, C is the cause of B, D is the cause of C, like that you go up to Z. Naturally the question will be, what is the cause of Z? Suppose you say God is the cause of that, the Brahma is the creator of the universe. The question will be, where from did Brahma come? The cause and effect chain, it will continue further. So if at all there is something called the ultimate truth, on which the whole reality is appearing to be, by definition it has to transcend the cause and effect chain. Because cause and effect means time, duality, everything is involved there. The truth has to be beyond time, beyond duality, beyond cause and effect. So, if you know something which is beyond the cause and effect chain, that means which is the absolute truth, you tell me that. Anyatra dharmad, anyatra adharmad, anyatra asmat krita kritat, anyatra bhutatcha bhavyatcha. If you know something which is beyond the past and future, Bhuta means past, Bhavya means future. What does it mean? That means it is beyond time. Present one need not say, because past and future, they complete the whole time span. Because present, the measure of time you can reduce to any level. Suppose now you can measure up to nanosecond. So nanosecond this way and that way, this is past, this is future. You make it further, you take it to 10 to the power minus 24 of a second. Then also that much will, so present can be reduced to any amount depending on our measurement or so. So it need not be said. So beyond time means beyond past, beyond future. If you know anything, that means which will surpass the time. Because time also is ingrained in causality. Whatever precedes in time we call cause. Whatever follows in time we call it cause, we call it effect. Is it not so? It is just by our sense of time it is governed. Whatever is preceding. Suppose it has happened in the reverse manner. Suppose you are putting the leather in the factory. At a cow, the cow is cut, it is skinned, and then the skin is processed. Finally you are getting the shoes from there. If you run the reverse order, the shoes you put in and the cows finally walk out of the factory. It doesn't happen. In the time it doesn't happen. That is why some cause to effect, whatever precedes in time we consider to be cause. So anything that is beyond causality means it is beyond time also. If you know something, anyatra bhutatcha bhavyatcha yattat pashyasi tadvada. If you see something beyond all these dualities, dharma, adharma, cause, effect, past, future. These are all the dualities. If you see something transcending all these things, you tell me about this. Now these two questions are same. Questions are not same apparently. One is he is asking what happens when the body falls. And in this case, it is if you know anything beyond all the causality. But both are the same. When we know what happens when the body falls, that is the Atma we talk about. This Atma, to know it properly, the real identity that we have, it is beyond all these things, beyond causality, beyond time, beyond dharma, adharma. Such is our real identity. Are you able to relate the two? The questions to the answers is the same, because in one case you are looking at it as the ultimate source of the universe, that from where the whole creation is coming, creation with its all fragmentation, duality, multiplicity, time, space, matter, everything. but the reality is transcending all that. In the other case, that reality which is the source of the universe or substratum of the universe is our real identity. You have to know that. So the two questions are so amazingly precisely kept. You should wonder about it. Our Shastras, the creation, the two questions, because the reply is the same. That is our real identity. And to know that naturally you cannot associate with the body because the body is changeful. Body was small, it has become big, it will die, it was born, it will die. So the Atma you cannot relate to the body if it is beyond change. Atma was this and it has become like this. That means Atma is undergoing change, was, is. That is time. With time it is changing. Something was cause, something was effect. So you cannot relate the Atma to that. That means our real identity is not undergoing any causal change at all, any cause and effect at all. That is why we call the soul to be unaffected, untainted by anything happening in the universe. Now if we now practically apply it to us, then what happens? If I am that soul, then why am I getting affected by whatever is happening, by suffering? I should be able to take the suffering without getting affected by it. I should be able to take the happiness without getting elated by it. Anybody coming, somebody may be criminal, somebody may be saintly. I should be able to talk to both, meet both. Not that I will host the criminal and send away the saint or so. I can do whatever behavioral necessities are, but not having any special clinging or hatred towards anybody, not having any partial personal clinging or hatred. That the impersonality, impartiality will automatically come to us. This is how the Upanishadic truth has to be applied to develop our own mind. Now here the changes taking place is not in the soul. We should not make that mistake. Soul does not undergo any change at all. So any pursuit we do, the sadhana we do, the soul does not change. Soul is whatever it is, it was, it will be, is the same. Whatever changes are taking place in our body, mind, intelligence, personality, there are also a lot of misunderstanding is there. We think that the soul becomes liberated. Soul is always liberated. There is no liberation necessary for the soul. But we don't know that it is liberated. Who doesn't know? The mind doesn't know. The intelligence doesn't know that the soul is liberated. When the mind and intelligence come to know that the soul is liberated, the mind and intelligence becomes liberated. That is the truth. So all the changes are taking place in mind and intelligence. And we have to incorporate the change. Unless we think, we do the vichara, we undergo the process of the Upanishad, these changes will not take place in the mind and intelligence. So, here it is like this, kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavatiti. Here the question is, again the same thing, by knowing what, everything will become known. Now, in replying that, I have gone through the verses, so let us just have a recapitulation of the 6th verse. Yat tadadreshyam agrahyam agotram avarnam achakshushotram tadapanipadam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam tadavyayam yat bhutayonim paripashyanti dhiraha. He says that, I have explained it, I am just recapitulating, that about that truth, he is saying the first line is adreshyam, agrahyam, agotram, avarnam. Adreshyam means cannot be seen. Actually, it's all the 5 senses have to be taken into account, as I said. It cannot be heard, it cannot be touched, all those things. Adreshyam, agrahyam, it cannot be grasped by any of our karmendriyas, our other organs of action. It cannot be seen by any sense organs. It cannot be held by any organs of action, touched by any organs of action. Agotram means it does not have any source. Gotra means source. We generally refer to our Gotra means we are coming down from which lineage, the source. It does not have any source. How? Because if it has a source, then that source will be the ultimate truth. This will not be the ultimate truth. So it cannot have any further source for it at all. avarnam. It does not have any qualities by which you can differentiate in it. The whole world is having varna, by which you differentiate the fragment, the whole world. But in the truth, there cannot be any varna, then it will limit. Suppose which has created all the colors, it cannot have any color. All the colors are coming. So if it already, suppose the original ray is red, then you cannot have the green from it. You will have red, orange perhaps, but green cannot be had from there. So because the original does not have any color, it can embrace all the colors there. So it is avarnam. That means I said that this is vastu guna varjitam. Vastu guna varjitam means it does not have any objective properties. Any object to perceive, it will have these properties. We can see the table because it can be seen. We can touch the table because it can be touched. Now this truth cannot be seen, cannot be touched, cannot be held, cannot be heard, cannot be tasted. So it does not have any of the object properties. What does it mean? That means if we want to know the self, or not self, self means our own identity. You cannot limit it by any of these coordinates. So you cannot hope to see that, as people say that I have had the vision of the God. When you are having the vision, you are coloring the truth by your mental concept of a form. The same soul is being seen by a Devi worshipper as a Devi, by a Shiva worshipper as a Shiva. It is his mind color he is attaching to his own consciousness and seeing it as the soul. So Shastras are absolutely clear and specific about it. The truth, the self, you cannot think of seeing it or sensing it or hearing it or touching it at all. So when we actually meditate or try to find out the truth or the self, we have a tendency to look at it that one day I will discover it, as if something before me. No, it cannot be done. So is it not correcting our method, our sadhana? So this we have to understand. Every step it is correcting our enquiry, our sadhana, that we should not try to look at it in this manner. Similarly, if you think that the ultimate truth is a superhuman being or super intelligence like that who is seeing everything, doing everything, we generally have the God is omniscient, omnipotent, he is doing everything. That is also true, but he does not do anything is also true. That is why he is transcendental. That is why we said that after seeing all the pilgrimages, finally you go to Puri Jagannath to see that Jagannath does not have hand, does not have feet, nothing. He does not do anything. Truly speaking, God does not do anything at all. He is only Sakshi. That Upanishads go on repeating again and again. Whatever happens, he remains a witness of it. Also, the Bhagavad Gita uses the term Upadrashta Anumantacha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. He says he is Bharta, he is Bhokta, that he is the doer of everything, retainer of everything, he is the enjoyer of everything. But at the same time, he is neither the enjoyer nor the doer also. Upadrashta Anumantacha. He gives permission to happen whatever happens. Even if all the whole civilization perishes by flood or earthquake or so, it is with his permission, Anumanta. He permits everything to happen. If a meteor hits the earth and the whole earth gets pulverized, or say nuclear war takes place, it is with God's permission, we should understand. Anumanta. And Upadrashta, he remains a witness to that. He does not do anything to prevent it at all. So, that is why in the second line he says, Achakshu Shrotram Tadapani Padam. He does not have any of the sense organs. The first one, he cannot be perceived by any of the sense organs. And he cannot be held by any of the organs of action. Here he is saying the God himself does not have any of the sense organs. Either eyes or hands or legs, the actions, organs of action or organs of perception. Nothing he has. Achakshu Shrotram Tada Panipadam. He does not have hands and feet. He does not have the eyes or the ears. Not only that, after saying that he has all the Vastuguna, he does not have. Vastuguna means the objective properties he doesn't have. And also he does not have Kartritva and Bhoktritva. This Achakshu Shrotram Apanipadam means He does not have kartritva or bhoktritva. He does not do anything. He does not enjoy anything also. Immediately in all these cases you have to relate to your own self. Our real identity also. When we are enjoying, my taste, my tongue is enjoying and the mind getting attached to the tongue is enjoying, but I am only witness of that enjoyership. Similarly, when the mind is suffering because of something, it is the consciousness is only allowing the mind to undergo the suffering, it is the witness. So it depends on us whether we identify ourselves with the witness or with the suffering mind. Upanishads beautifully speaks about later on, both Kathopanishad and Mundakopanishad, about two birds sitting on two branches of the tree. Both look absolutely identical. But one is eating all the fruits and enjoying the taste of it. Some fruits are bitter, some fruits are sweet. Taking the bitter fruit, it is crying. Taking the sweet fruit, it is smiling, it is enjoying. Whereas the other bird from the top, it only abhichakashiti. Abhichakashiti, these are very special words. Abhichakashiti means just like Jagannatha Puri he sees. Without anything, witnesses. He remains a witness to that. Now this bird which is eating the fruit sweet and bitter and all, one day it looks at the higher branch and thinks that what is this bird, other bird who looks exactly like me, I am also like him, but I am getting changing every time with the fruits eating and everything, but that bird always remains the same. So it starts jumping up, coming closer, 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 start becoming like that. Finally he gets merged with that bird when he identifies that this is what I am also. So far I was clinging to the fruits, so I was not able to go to the higher branches where there are no fruits at all. I was enjoying the fruits remaining at a lower height. Seeing the other bird, slowly acha, that is the real case. I can also be like that. Not only that, I am like that, he understands. The two birds get merged. This is what happens to we say Jivatma and Paramatma. We think that we are Jivatma. Actually Jivatma is nothing other than the Paramatma, nothing other than the Brahman. Once we discover this Sakshi Bhava, we try to identify with that more and more. Then whatever Sukha, Dukkha, everything comes, we just simply take it with prasada. Dukkha also with prasada, Sukha also with prasada. So, then after this he goes over to Nityam Vibhum Sarvagatam Susukshmam. All these I have explained the other day. Nityam means always there. Now I cautioned you that if you want to get at the truth, you have to remember one thing here. All our concepts are of the objective world, material world. When we say Nityam means constant there is a sense of time coming in. That means it was there earlier, it will be there in future. But this truth is beyond time, it is transcendental. Here when we say Nityam, it is not in the material sense that space was there and space will be there. It is not like that. It is beyond space, beyond time, it is transcendental. Similarly, Vibhum means who is the expression of who has become everything in the world. Vibhu means who has manifest as everything in the world. Now, all the forms of the world has come out of this. Means it does not have any form, it transcends the forms. You cannot say that it is formless because all the forms are born of it. So it is the substratum of both formless and infinite forms also. So what can you tell about it? It is transcendental. It manifests as infinite number of forms. At the same time, it is without form also. So he becomes Vibhum. Sarvagatam means everywhere it is percolating. Whenever we say it is all pervading, the all is there, presence is there. And we think that like air it is percolating everywhere, or say like space it is percolating everywhere. These are all for simple illustration we think of space percolating in the book, percolating everywhere it is percolating. But these are all material illustrations. We have to think of the truth that it is beyond that. Here Sarvagatam means that everything is appearing in that. Even the space, time, everything is appearing in that consciousness. So it is not the usual sense of air percolating everywhere. But it means that it is not limited by anything. That thinking that God is here and God is not there, or the Atma is here and Atma is not there, these are to be corrected. It is not so. By saying Sarvagatam, we annul this fragmented view that it is, we generally think Atma is in my body and Atma is not here. It is not so. It is everywhere. Susukshmam. The moment we say Susukshmam, we mean that subtler than the subtlest, still subtler than space, even like that. It is not so. Even in space, space is a knowledge for our consciousness. Time is a knowledge for our consciousness. Susukshmam means it is beyond the comparative subtlety. Both the subtle as well as the gross are appearing in that. See, gross is also there. How can you call it subtle? And the subtlest thing is also a manifestation of this. So it is transcending the concept of gross and subtle is the meaning of Susukshmam. If you think and analyze in this manner, you will be able to reach the truth. Why then it is always spoken of as vast, Sukshma, etc.? Because we don't have to tell ourselves about grossness, small. Our mind from birth is given to smallness and grossness. Is it not? Always we are holding on to grossness and fragmentation and smallness. So what is the point in further enforcing that yes, the truth is also grossness and smallness? So to treat that mind has become small and fragmented by constantly dealing with small things and fragmented things. Am I clear? Right from birth, every day, now also, by constant dealing with the small fragmented things, the mind has become small and fragmented. Such a mind has to be made transcendental. So before it becomes transcendental, it has to get rid of the constrictions we have given it. It has to become small to big, so that we can embrace all the people, my foe, enemy and friend, everybody will incorporate in that embrace. Whatever, who abuses me, who criticizes me, who praises me, who supports me, everybody we have to embrace. So the mind has to become vast. Once it becomes vast, it can transcend the both vastness and smallness. But remaining small, if you say that it is transcendental, so remaining small I will transcend. Hoga nahi. Kabhi nahi ho sakta, because you are not able to expand. Only when you have expanded, you can go beyond both small and big. Similarly, about sattva, rajas, tamas also, people will say, if finally it is gunatita, then why should I cultivate sattva guna? Hoga nahi. Because tamasikata by itself is constricting you, making you deluded, keeping you away from the enlightenment. Unless you get the sattva guna which will bring in the enlightenment, bring in all the uniformity, all the infinitude, you will not be able to transcend the three gunas. You will be caught by the rajoguna and tamoguna. To conquer the tamoguna and rajoguna, you have to cultivate sattva-guna. When you have become extremely sattvic, then you find that sattva-guna also binds you. Then we can go beyond. So everywhere this transcendence we have to remember. Now after that susukshmam, it comes to tad avyayam yat bhuta yonim paripashyanti dhiraha. Dhiraha means a person, a knower, who has known this truth. Paripashyanti means everywhere he sees. Paritaha pashyanti means everywhere he sees. Tad avyayam yat bhuta yonim. Bhuta yonim means the source of all the beings, all the universe. The source of the universe. Now, in any case, I explained the other day also, whatever is produced, by that the source gets depleted. Suppose there is some gold, you make the ornaments, will the gold remain intact? The gold will be over by that. By radiating light, the hydrogen in the sun is getting converted into oxygen, is no more available in its form. So always by manifesting, creating something, the source undergoes a change. Here he says that this source of the universe is avyaya, means unchanging. So here is some apparent contradiction from the material sense, that the whole production, the creation is coming out of a source which does not undergo any change at all. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. The whole universe is infinite, but while producing the infinite universe also, nothing gets depleted. The Purna remains Purna. So this is talking about some creation which is non-material creation. This is the very important point if you want to grasp the truth. It's a non-material creation.